going inside the issues of our community. This is Local 12 Newsmakers.
Good morning and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. 10 days ago, John Cranley, one of the fixtures at City Hall over the last 8 years, announced his retirement, barely a month after engineering the launch of the most creative and potentially most enduring proposal of his tenure, the Cincy Care Health Plan. Last Monday, Cranley's Democratic colleagues huddled, interviewed potential candidates, and selected a replacement. On Wednesday, Greg Harris was sworn in as the newest council member. So goes city politics under the rigors of term limits. I am joined this morning by Greg Harris. Mr. Harris holds a PhD in English from Miami University. He has taught, served as a program manager for Public Allies and as executive director of Citizens for Civic Renewal. In 2004, he ran as a Democrat for Congress against Steve Chabot, losing 59 to 41%. In 2007, he ran for the first time for Cincinnati City Council as an endorsed Democratic candidate and finished 12th, just 9,000 votes behind the 9th place finisher. Greg, welcome to Newsmakers and congratulations.
It's great to be here again.
Yeah. This whole area of getting named to council is a little bit different, and people are interested. When you went in for that interview on Monday, and it wasn't just the formal interview, you've been talking to people all along, I'm sure. What did people want to know? What were they interested in? What were they concerned about? What were your colleagues who were going to appoint you? What were they concerned about?
There was a uniform set of questions, I guess, that they were asking of all of us. A lot of it was our legislative priorities, but also a major emphasis on could you hold the seat. These opportunities come along rarely when a vacancy occurs, and they want to give it to someone who they're convinced can not only serve the people well, but also continue to serve come November.
Oh, well, I figured that was a major concern.
Yeah.
I've been around long enough to know that, and that's why I sort of set it up the way I did. I mean, you ran 12th last time.
Yeah.
What are you going to need to do? One of the things I went back and checked was you ran in the top 9 only in 2 wards, as I can see. The 15th ward, which is Clifton, a little bit of North Side, and you ran, I think, 7th there. And then in the 22nd ward in Cumminsville, very small ward, you ran 9th.
I think downtown I was top 9 too. But
all right, I missed that. Very good. So the point is, what do you have to do to change that? Where is your constituency? Where's your base that you have to get out and form and put together here?
Well, interesting. There's a huge history to the seat I inherited, and it was served by John Cranley, Todd Portune, Charlie Lucan, and it was traditionally a West Side seat. And John was the only West Side representation, although he recently moved to the East Side. He was born and raised there and was a strong advocate. So a lot of activists and community leaders from the West Side, which represents 27% of our city's population, strongly advocated for me to get this seat. And I was really humbled by their support. Pete Whitty, Power Pack, some familiar names and organizations came out and really lobbied for me. So I think what you'll see next time is wards where I didn't do so well in 07.
That big 26th ward?
Absolutely. I think you'll see me being one of the top vote getters. I'll continue to build my strength in the center of the city, downtown through Clifton and College Hill. And then it just takes resources. You have to be able to raise the money. One thing I did is hire a finance director who raised over $5 million for candidates since 2006. It's sort of a necessary evil of politics, but TV is expensive, direct mail is expensive, and you have to really raise a lot of resources to win. I think building up my exposure in African American wards, doing hard work on the East Side, and then just having 10 months to show what I'm about. I mean, that's the advantage of being an incumbent. I've always been the underdog in my races, but this time I'll have the advantages of incumbency, really a 10-month audition to the people of Cincinnati to see what my priorities are, what I'm about. So it's really, I really feel fortunate to have this opportunity.
Yeah, there is that tradition of council people giving their seat to somebody,
yeah,
hoping that that person can then establish themselves and hold that seat. Lots of people have done that over the years. I know that you and John were close. I've seen you together out in restaurants at breakfast and whatever on
we belong to
occasion.
the illustrious club of politicians who lost to Steve Chabot.
Right. And so how long have you known, how much preparation did you have? How long did you know that John was going to I don't think there was any surprise that John decided to move on because he is term limited. But the timing, this is pretty early still for him to do that. Often this takes place in the summer, at the summer break. So how much of a tip-off do you have?
No tip-off. Just a lot. There was a lot of chatter out there. There was some indication that he may be leaving early. He recently married. He has a child on the way. Spending a lot of time on his new development business in East Price Hill, and he wanted to go back to working as a litigator. So, I think just there was a confluence of events where he just really felt it was time to move on. And
did he ever say to you, Greg, I hope you end up with this seat? Was he in there lobbying for you?
No, he didn't do that. I think when his colleagues on council asked him about me, he said good things. I think he wanted to stay a West Side seat. We have a very strong relationship. We're both policy oriented, and so he said good things, but no sort of aggressive lobbying.
Okay, so you've talked about your priorities and your agenda. You've made reference several times. What are your priorities going into this? What is it that you care about?
Well, there are a number of things. I mean, one, I care about Cincy Care, which you mentioned earlier. Okay. I mean, I think what John did, looking at our public health clinics that were being underutilized, thinking, boy, this is a impoverished city. We have a lot of working poor who maybe not be eligible for federal assistance, but can't afford private insurance. Mm-hmm. So let's figure out a way to really market these centers, to get people, to get employers to start paying into them who have, whether it be fast food restaurants or companies that can't afford insurance, so their employees can get basic care.
So you see that as something that you will continue to champion?
And maybe even scale up. That I think that this can actually be pay for itself. I think a lot of hospitals might start paying into it because it diverts people from emergency rooms. So you treat them at the front end. I care about Cincy Care. I think there's the potential of Cincinnati Promise, the idea that anyone who graduates from a Cincinnati high school can go to college for free in a regional university or community college. I think this council is going to look very seriously at Cincinnati Promise. And it's funny, it's the educational value in of itself is enough for me, but it actually would pay strong economic development dividends. We see that sort of in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Kalamazoo Promise.
But they did something similar. It really is an enticement for middle-class families to locate in a city where they feel when their kids graduate from high school, they can have tuition covered.
Which is the same thing with Cincy Care.
Yeah.
I mean, when John was on to talk about Cincy Care 6 weeks ago or whatever it was, that was one of the things too. This could be a real incentive for certain types of companies to either stay in Cincinnati or come to Cincinnati because of this sort of benefit for their employees. But here, with the Cincinnati Promise, the idea that middle-class families see this in that expensive college market, this would be a real help.
We'll have a healthy, educated citizenry, and that could be a...
Is that a city council concern, or is that, and this is the old question, the Board of Education concern? Why is that a council concern?
Well, economic development is a council concern. We need to have a prosperity agenda in the city. There's a lot of programs that we want to fund. We have to fund our public safety needs, but in the end, you have to grow your wealth as a city, and you have to make it attractive for homeowners to come in. You need to make it attractive for all the people who come to our Fortune 50 companies to stay here. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of enticements. So when you look at things like Cincy Care, Cincinnati Promise, streetcars, those kinds of things, and you sort of look at it through a cost-benefit approach, that's the types of things that can attract young talent to a city. It can help encourage people to move back to the city. It can encourage people to stay in the city, and that's what we need right now.
You mentioned in passing there the Cincinnati streetcar.
Yeah.
There's a very strong chance that with the NAACP and Coast teaming up, that they could have the streetcar on the ballot this fall while council elections are going on. So this is probably going to become a question. Their critique is that that's diverting money from neighborhood business district development. I mean, that's one of their critiques. You're just saying that it's a potentially an attraction for economic development. How do you square those two things? And the NAACP, the African American community, for Democrats, it's an important group of people that you have to have behind you.
It's very important, and they have a good track record with these ballot initiatives, and I respect their view. The thing is, they sort of call it the choo-choo train that goes off for a small area, downtown to uptown. If you just literalize that as only benefiting the folks who live across where the lines will be set, then you can easily defeat the program. The problem, the good thing is that the money it raises will not stay in those areas. It benefits all of Cincinnati's 52 neighborhoods. We want to revitalize our neighborhood business districts. We want to create home ownership incentives. We want to be able to fund the human needs of our population. But you have to have a revenue to do that. Now, the thing about streetcars, which studies show, is that they're permanent lines, and so a lot of the areas and the properties around where the lines would, the value of those properties would really increase dramatically, and the cost benefit to the city would be pennies to the dollar. That they would return hundreds of millions of dollars. It would raise the value of these properties in the hundreds of millions, and again, it would grow our wealth as a city.
Yeah, it is another one of these economic development tools.
Right.
It's not fundamentally a transportation tool.
Well,
it only looks like a transportation.
And let's look at it in a broader context. This is a region that's been subsidizing sprawl for a long time. We develop land at a rate 5 times faster than our population is growing. It's a very old-fashioned to see economic development follow infrastructure development. This isn't a hard sell. We see that throughout history since the Highway Act of the 50s. So I think what we're going to see with this core, robust core development of a transit system and expansion of that system is you're going to see the development of the city come along with it. Eventually you want to see, not just the core, but you want to see Bond Hill linked to Uptown, Roselawn, all the areas of the city.
And we know that, because we talked about this on this show a lot, the streetcar, too, is a way of people getting used to it so that hopefully we can begin to look again at light rail.
Absolutely.
A much more regional sort of system than the streetcar is. One of the other areas I know you're interested in, because you and I have talked over the past few days, is the whole area of Cincinnati police.
Yeah.
And what is it that you're concerned about as you enter office, and what is it that you think could be done in this area?
Well, look, this is a city that I think has a lot of things going for it. We have major city amenities in a sort of small town package. It has the potential to be the best hometown in America, but I think we need to become the safest city per capita in America. About 3-4 years ago, the business community brought in a renowned policing expert named John Linder. And he was some of the people who pioneered CompStat technology that helped clean up New York City, has an incredible track record. And he looked at how we do policing in this city and had some very strong recommendations for improving police technologies, cooperations with other agencies, the FBI, the DEA, just a strong set of recommendations. He also surveyed over 600 police officers who work here and found that they were very much demoralized and that there were disconnects between the police rank and file and police leadership in terms of what the priorities of the CPD should be. So I will be very interested to see, was this report heeded, because it didn't get attention.
Here's the copy of the report, and did this sort of just go on the shelf, you think?
Yeah.
This is 2005.
I think so. I need to do some fact-finding, talk to the city manager and see what came of this. It's really a good report.
One of the things in the budget cycle that just ended was there were some questions raised by some of the council people trying to drill down into the police department budget and trying to figure out, and that got short-circuited. It's really, that budget is something that council doesn't know a whole lot about how it's put together. Is that another area of concern for you?
Yeah, look, this is a compact city and we have over 1,200 police officers. How are we deploying these resources? Do we have enough people? Do we have enough people out of the cruisers, police visibility? Do we have enough people? There are a lot of police officers who are behind desks that maybe that could be filled by clerical administrative types so that the police officers could be out in the street. Are we using the best policing technologies? Are we using CompStat effectively? Are we coordinating with other agencies? Are we going after mid-level drug dealers? There's lots of best practices out there that other police departments throughout the country have adopted to great effect. And again, I think this could be the safest city per capita in America, but we have to get really smart in how we do policing. So I'm going to look very intensely. I'm on the safety committee, and I'm going to look very intensely at how the police department expends these resources. 2/3 of the city budget goes to public safety. We need to be on top of this.
Which is why that budget is so important.
Absolutely.
So, well,
sometimes it's bad politics, though. I mean, it looks like you're screwing it.
I know.
That's the scary. But
that's why I raised the streetcar thing. I pushed that a little bit. I want to push this because these are all difficult areas as we go along. And we're just about out of time, but now that you're on council, I look forward to talking with you on a regular basis. One final thing. You consider yourself a policy wonk?
I do. Yeah. It's a nice way of saying nerd. And, and again, as I was just alluding, sometimes good politics and good policy are not the same thing.
Right.
And I'm going to try to reconcile those two because I'm a good government guy, and I'm here and I want to practice what I've been preaching.
Okay, we will see what happens. That whole sprawl thing is something that you've been focused on for a long time. So we'll look for you to come back.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. After the break, a perspective on the war in Gaza from an agency charged with caring for civilian victims of war, no matter who they are. As the Israeli Defense Forces continued their attack on Hamas in Gaza into a third week, the toll on civilians mounts. Of the more than 1,000 dead, about a third are children, while nearly 4,800 people have been injured. The president of the International Committee of the Red Cross, Jacob Kellenberger, after visiting both southern Israel and Gaza, has strenuously criticized combatants for refusing to allow Red Crescent workers to reach and care for injured civilians in Gaza. Welcome back. The International Committee of the Red Cross, the ICRC, was established in 1863 and is the origin of the Red Cross, Red Crescent, and Red Crystal organizations. The ICRC defines itself as an impartial, neutral, and independent organization whose exclusively humanitarian mission is to protect the lives and dignity of victims of war and internal violence and to provide them with assistance. It directs and coordinates the international relief activities conducted by the movement in situations of conflict. It also endeavors to prevent suffering by promoting and strengthening humanitarian law and universal humanitarian principles. I am joined this morning by Vincent Costello, the Director of the International Services of the American Red Cross Cincinnati chapter. Mr. Costello has 35 years of experience with the American Red Cross, the Red Cross Red Crescent movement. He is an expert with family linking, tracing services, including family reunification, and has worked in the United States, the Caribbean, Macedonia, and Kosovo. Vince, welcome to Newsmakers.
Thank you, Dan.
As we look at what's happening in southern Israel and in Gaza, and we're taping on Friday, this is going to air on Sunday, things could change.
Right.
Is the situation that the Red Cross, Red Crescent movement faces there typical of lots of war situations that you face when you're trying to serve people?
I think it's similar, but maybe not as severe as we're seeing now with the bombings and Red Cross personnel being endangered as well.
Yeah, I mean, there was an incident, 10 days ago or so, where there was a Red Cross relief truck driver, if I remember correctly, which is a very unusual situation in that happened there. Is that right?
Well, it's unusual because international humanitarian law or the Geneva Conventions really protects Red Cross, Red Crescent workers during conflict, and that's what the symbols are for. So it's unusual that we're in the middle, but it's not uncommon either.
So in that particular case, as I understand what happened, was that truck was cleared to go through a checkpoint, and so everybody knew it was going through, and then was attacked. And it was not just it didn't just happen, but it had actually been cleared by the Israeli forces.
As far as we know, yeah. I mean we got permission from the forces there, and notify them that we wanted to deliver humanitarian aid so that they knew we were going in.
Now, one of the arguments that the Israeli forces make is that the Hamas forces are hiding behind civilians. They are operating close to hospitals, close to Red Cross facilities, close to United Nations facilities. The United Nations headquarters was hit yesterday.
Yesterday, right.
And again, what do you say to that? This is a very densely packed area, and in fact, fighters could be mixed in with this.
Well, and Kellenberger, I think has indicated, that he's concerned about the protection of the civilians that are being kind of trapped in the middle here. And I think it's really a hard type situation where you've got Hamas or military personnel in general mixed in with relief workers as well. And we're not there trying to investigate where they are or what they're doing. We're there just to provide the aid.
If a Red Cross unit knew that a combatant element was set up close to it, does the Red Cross in that situation have any authority to go out and say, you can't be here, you can't be next to our facility, or the Red Cross doesn't take that role?
Well, what they will do is they will go to those forces and say, you need to observe international humanitarian law and not use us or civilians as shields. That's what international law is all about.
I think it's somewhat shocking to see on these death and casualty figures the percentage of children who have died. A third or more deaths are children's deaths. I mean, this is, and when you talk about civilian casualties in a war zone, this is a pretty extreme situation.
Well, yeah, and again, Kellenberger and the folks that are there are trying to talk to Hamas and Israel, regardless of whoever's in the middle of this, that remember, you have to observe international humanitarian law. You can't put civilians or you can't target civilians in doing this. Now, whether they are or not is not for us to decide here this morning. We're just, the Red Cross is just saying, we have an argument or we have a concern that you're putting those people in harm's way.
What's the relationship? And we have the symbols that were up earlier. In the United States, we talk about the Red Cross all the time. But actually, this is a much larger movement. And if you could just remind us of the fact that all of these various aspects of the movement are really related. And we right now can see the Red Cross, a Red Crescent, and a Red Crystal, which people may not be familiar with. Well, are these all working together?
Yeah, they are. We call it the International Red Cross and Red Crescent movement. When the movement was founded in 1863 by a gentleman by Henry Dunant, he used the Red Cross, which was just the reverse of the Swiss flag. Then later on, Turkey was admitted to the movement, and they chose to use the crescent. And the movement never has wanted to be affiliated with religious connotations, and yet people have interpreted it that way. In 2005, the crystal was added to avoid future additions of religious symbols that might be construed that way.
So let's be clear from the beginning that the Red Cross was not a religious movement. It's not a religious organization.
It was never intended to be that way.
Okay, it is a civic,
humanitarian, neutral, impartial organization established to provide aid and assistance to all sides of a conflict, regardless of political, racial, ethnic background, and that's why we are able to go behind enemy lines and are the only organization that does that.
Does the local Red Cross chapter here in Cincinnati, does it in any way help fund the international ICRC, the movement internationally, and trying to bring relief, say, into this war zone and other war zones?
Well, we contribute money every year, and in fact, the U.S. government actually has a line item in their budget as well. But the American Red Cross contributes each year a certain amount to both the International Committee of the Red Cross and the Federation, which was the other part of the movement. And particularly with this incident, the American Red Cross has already sent $500,000 to aid in this relief effort.
Okay, so could an individual call up the local chapter and offer some help?
What we would suggest people do is write a check or go online to our website or call, and we can take donations, and they can be designated to the crisis in Gaza.
Okay, just so people are clear about this, if you would like information about the International Committee of the Red Cross, check out their website at icrc.org, www. For the local chapter of the American Red Cross, they can be found at www.cincinnatiredcross.org, or their telephone number is 513-579-3000. Also, if you're interested in expressing your desire for peace tomorrow night, Monday night, on the birthday of the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., who worked for peace, peaceful change everywhere, there will be a prayer service sponsored by the Muslim Mothers Against Violence and the Children of the International Academy of Cincinnati. The service will be at 6 p.m. at the Islamic Center in Westchester at Tylersville Road, the Tylersville Road exit at I-75. That's exit 22. Vince, thank you very much for being here this morning, and thank you for all the work that you and your compatriots through the Red Cross movement do for the people of the world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. Join us again next week to meet the men and the women shaping our community and the world for the future. Have a good week.